Buongiorno. We're back, and we're gonna go ahead and finish off talking about what happened in season 4. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't have the microphone. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, let's go ahead and finish talking about season 4. The whole Furio thing and Carmela, the whole Furio and Carmela thing is going on. And I don't know. It's just sad, Because obviously we know that she's not happy. And Furio is like, dude, he cries. He cries when he goes back to the car. Tony sees him crying. He's like, what's the matter with you, And then he goes, oh, I'm thinking about I don't know, what do you say, papa? I don't know. But yeah, he was crying about these feelings that he's having towards Carmela, that he's just like, he was so ashamed, Once he told Carmela, like, he wasn't going to go in the house, he just, I don't know, man, it's crazy, like, emotional. That's all I can say about that. And then in this episode, we kind of see, not kind of, but at least I feel like we find out where Polly's only real loyalty lies, and that's to his Mamma Mia, And yeah, in this episode, like, his mom, he gets her into that retirement community, and the older ladies, or the other older ladies there that know her, like, don't want to hang out with her because she's a rat, a tattletale, she's like crying all the time, she's like a Debbie Downer, whatever, and Polly doesn't give a shit. Like, he's like, these ladies better hang out with my mom. Like, that's all he wants. He doesn't care about his mom's, like, he's basically doing the same thing that his mom did for him, right? When he said that his mom used to go and, like, be there while her son was getting, like, scolded or in trouble, and she would always be there. She would always show up for him, and claim him. She would claim him, and she would defend him, basically, no matter what he did. So he's doing the same thing for his mom, which is, it's kind of crazy, but that is where Polly's real loyalty is, because we know, obviously, that it's been tested and it hasn't been so, I don't know, so apparent. It hasn't been too apparent where it's been, like, he's been kind of like sour grapes, so yeah, there's that. But Polly's mama, Valentina, the trickster, she wants to get with Tony Soprano. She's into him, but she's with Ralphie. And the way that she finds a way around this is to tell Tony that her and Ralphie haven't really had, like, a regular intimate relationship. And Tony's like, oh, okay, well, I guess technically then. Because Tony was like, I don't want to be where Ralphie has been. So, what does that mean? I don't want to be where Ralphie has been. I wonder if that has a bigger meaning. But yeah. So Ralphie's weird fetishes and things that he's into in the bedroom are exposed by Valentina and Janice for a price to Tony Soprano. And did you see I spit a little bit? I'm so sorry. And yeah. So Tony talks to Dr. Melfi about it. And he's like trying to figure, like, he's just curious about it, like confused and curious about it, you know? And then later on, we also see him want to talk to Ralphie about his mom. And Ralphie gets so uncomfortable that, like, as soon as Tony's like, oh, so, you know, trying to talk about the mamas, Ralphie's like, hey, I gotta go. So I guess that makes it pretty obvious that his mom was probably like Livia, if not worse. I don't know. And then Tony's with Valentina. This whole other affair is going on, right? And one of Valentina's nails ends up in Tony's clothes. Which I wonder if that was, like, she's, I don't know, a trickster, right? So I wonder if that was on purpose. Like, I wonder if she did that purposefully. Right? I don't know. Or maybe it was just like an accident. But yeah, that was pretty crazy. And that, of course, led to Carmela just being like, enough is enough. She knows Tony's hiding money because she knows him, right? She figured it out. She goes, takes some money from the bird food little secured box, and that's it. She takes some money and she steals from her husband, right? But is it really stealing too? I mean, is it? Haven't they shared finances for how long? And all of a sudden he's hiding money too? Like, it's just crazy. It's insane. Junior realizes that the FBI informant that was at his doctor's office was probably that nurse that he was like flirting with and trying to get to go out with him, right? So he figures out that it was, or he had already figured that it was her. And then we see him coming out of the trial and of court. He's coming out of court. And once he hears, like, there's reporters, and once he hears that reporter, what's her name? Ashley, or I don't remember her name, but once she says, oh, you know, Corrado Soprano, this is blah, blah, blah from Channel 7 News or whatever. And he goes, Allison? Oh, Allison? He goes, Allison? And that causes him to, like, hit his head against one of those boom mics, right? And yeah, it's just crazy. Like, he has fallen multiple times for women, right? The whole thing with Olivia. And maybe this is just, it has nothing to do with it, but it kind of does. It's just facts, right? The whole thing with Olivia was causing him to, like, at least with his family, right? And it kind of also would have showed the guys that, like, he would take orders from, like, a girl, right? Or like Olivia. I don't know. Whatever. I'm reaching there probably a little bit. But yeah, and then the whole thing with the nurse being the one that was basically he wanted to get with, and her being the one that's, like, giving all this information to the FBI, and for him to, like, hurt his head right now with the anchor. It's just of note, you know? Okay, so Ralphie figures out that Polly was the one that told Johnny Sack about the Ginny joke. And how fucking clever must he be, right? Or am I just, like, I'm too amazed at this thing that he usually does, right? Which is just have to think. Like, he figures out that it was Polly. Like, to him, it wasn't like oh, he'll be in jail, so he couldn't have done it, you know? He was like, it was probably him. So he figures out it was him. He gets revenge. He calls Polly's mama. And he like freaks her out by telling her that her son's been arrested for like sucking a D, right? And yeah, it's funny. The phone call was funny. It was convincing just because Ralphie was like, yeah, according to article this in section 14 or whatever. It was just super funny, dude. I couldn't. And the guy's laughing there too. It was crazy. It was funny. Okay, so Ralphie's son ends up in the hospital, and it's very severe. It's pretty severe. Like, the kid is going to end up a vegetable, like Rosalie said, right? And it just breaks Ralphie. He's crying. Like, he is how we have never seen him before. And which is like sad and emotional, you know? And he apologizes to Rosalie because he realizes that, like, she just went through a tragedy with her son, and he couldn't be compassionate towards her because he couldn't put himself in her shoes. He was he wanted to just get rid of the problem, so he booked it. He left. And he apologizes to her, and he realizes all this stuff. He just had like this very intense thing happen to him. And he like realizes that like everything is different, you know? Something just affected him. Something shook him to the core. And everyone sympathizes with him. Tony, well, everyone except Polly. Polly realizes and knows that it was Ralphie that called his mom. And he knows that, so he doesn't give a shit about what Ralphie's going through. Which I don't know, that's crazy, huh? Crazy. But like, Polly's mama is more important than Ralphie's kid to him, obviously. Yes. But you know what? Silvio says something like, he doesn't have kids, right? Or Tony or Silvio say something like that, like, oh, Polly doesn't understand because he doesn't have kids. But Christopher is here, and Christopher gets it. He's like, okay. So I mean, I don't know. What about Tony's timing for telling Ralphie that he's seen Valentina? Is that not the worst freaking timing? So bad. I was like, are you serious? Are you serious right now, Tony? You're usually good at these things, man. So anyway, he's basically doing the same thing that Zellman did, kind of, right? Does it count? It's kind of the same thing, right? So, it's a cycle, you know? And Ralphie says to Tony that if he had met someone like Carmela, his life probably would have been different right after that conversation about Valentina. So, that's pretty crazy because he's like, dude, like, you know, your fucking wife, man, she's just down. She's down for whatever, bro. You know, she holds it down, man. And you're lucky. And then on top of that, he's still cheating on her, you know. And then Tony and Ralphie get into a fight, a physical fight, because Tony believes that Ralphie made the whole situation with Pyomai and the other 5 horses, made that situation appear like an accident when it was actually intentional. So, Pyomai is dead. And Tony is not happy. It really hurt him. So he kills Ralphie. And, yeah, he calls Christopher to help him. Christopher shows up. He's like, what the hell, man? On top of that, he's high. So he's like, what the hell, man? And they have to clean it up. And Tony says, I found him like this. But either way, he had it coming anyway. That guy was an asshole. Like, the thing with his son didn't just happen, like, there was no more empathy. And yeah, it was crazy. They do the thing. The wig falls off. Then they're sitting in this dead guy's house, watching his TV, eating his food, talking about like their personal problems, Christopher with the issue with Adriana and having children and stuff. So yeah, it was like mind-blowing. I was like, whoa, this is so crazy. And Christopher realizes that this is a big deal. He's like, Tony, this isn't gonna look good. Like, I don't know, this is just not gonna look good. And Tony, since he's just like, well, I can't even look back anymore because I already did this thing, right? And he's just trying to cover it up. He's like, no, like it's gonna look like someone else did it. Like, in his head, it's not gonna be so apparent what happened. But to Christopher, it already is. And as we see a little bit later in the next episode, yeah, it's like pretty apparent that Tony killed Ralphie over a freaking horse. Continuing on where we left off, it's very apparent that Tony Soprano killed Ralphie over a horse. Because, come on. Yeah, come on. And then that painting of Pio Mai and Tony that Tony had Ralphie removed from, right? From the original photograph that's being referenced, right? So Paulie ends up keeping that painting, and of course he gets this Napoleon-like uniform painted on Tony, and then he hangs it in his living room, and like behind the chair that he sits at to watch TV. I just also think it's so funny because Tony just got rid of that guy that he was like trying to go after right now, So it was funny. You know what? I actually did read the Wikipedia on it, and someone put something like it signifies that like, or it's just like Tony's eyes are always on Paulie while he's watching TV, or Tony's eyes are always on Paulie. So what is that? Like Tony obviously the painting, it looks like Tony's eyes are always looking at Paulie, but maybe there's something deeper there too. And Tony finally realizes that he doesn't really give a crap about people, Dr. Melfi's like, you cry about animals, you were freaking out about those ducks, now it's this freaking horse, I don't know, it's so she brings it up to him, or she mentions it to him, and the whole episode he's like, oh, did you guys hear about my horse? Oh, my horse. Did you hear what they did to my horse? It's crazy. But another thought is like, he respects like animals because he thinks that they're just innocent, right? Or he believes that they're innocent, so they don't deserve to be like messed with at all by humans, because they're not doing anything like purposefully to like cause any harm on anyone, right? Maybe that's what it is. And what's so crazy is that he also respects like his animal behavior so much, like all of his getting with any woman that he wants, like that that behavior, he respects it so much also. Which is just an observation, because that's all anything on here is, right? It's just observations. And yeah, it's pretty crazy to just think about, Svetlana and Tony do it on like Junior's couch. And Svetlana like turns Tony down. And he doesn't like that. Like, I guess he's never been rejected before, right? So it gets to him. And Svetlana's like, you know what, I'll call you, but probably not. Like, you come with a lot of baggage. I can't do her accent, so not gonna do that. And yeah, he gets like offended. Because he's like, dang, this bitch has... He's like, dang, this girl has one leg and she doesn't want me? Like, what the hell's wrong with me? Not that there's anything wrong with her missing a leg, but it's just fucking weird, It's funny to see how he melts down once someone rejects him. He's not used to it. Christopher gets high, is like watching the TV, and he's just so gone that he sits on Adriana's dog and kills it. Like, breaks her neck, probably. She's dead. I'm trying to say, that's what I'm trying to say. And he doesn't realize it. Like, dude, he was asleep and everything. Adriana finds the dog. I think he's probably still high. I don't know. She gives him like the pamphlet for the rehab. He gets pissed, slaps her around, which is always so hard to watch, And then she goes to the Sopranos residence, and Tony gets involved. He talks to Junior. Junior says that they probably have to get rid of Christopher. Tony's like, no, probably because he's family, I'm not gonna get rid of him. I'm just gonna have to fix him. I have to send him to rehab, because he is gonna be the one guy that he's gonna have to depend on, right? So it benefits him to send him to rehab too. So they do an intervention, and what's supposed to happen is, like, Christopher is supposed to be like, all right, I see how I've hurt all of you, and okay, I'm gonna go get help. But it doesn't go like that, I guess. Which I'm pretty sure, like, not most interventions go like that, but whatever. It gets heated. And everyone is sharing about how Christopher is messing up. And he has something to say to everyone. He talks to Polly, talks to Tony, talks to Silvio, starts offending them, which is just telling them their truths, right? They don't want to hear it because it's not supposed to be about them. It's supposed to be about him. And then even Chris's own mother is like, maybe someone will stop and send some to him. And when Christopher like says something back to her, Polly's the one that gets upset and slaps him. And they end up beating him up, and he ends up in the hospital. And then he goes to rehab. So what about this dream that Tony has? Riding in his dad's car, he's in the back seat. The person driving is Carmela. Sitting next to her in the passenger seat is Ralphie, a caterpillar on his bald head. And next to him is Gloria, and then it's Svetlana. So, what does that mean? What does it mean? The vehicle is his dad's. So what is he doing? Getting along in life in the same vehicle that his father had? No. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But anyway, yeah, Dr. Melfi gives him her interpretation of it after having him as a patient, so knowing him and a lot of his past and stuff. And he is like, oh my god, this is so dumb. So finally he leaves. He's like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Dr. Melfi's like, you should. And then he goes, nah, I'm done. He leaves. And yeah, that's the end of his therapy. But what I really want to talk about in this episode was what the hell Janice Soprano is doing to Bobby and his freaking family, man. It's messed up. I can't. What type of weird, person does that? To, scare the kids after she knows that they're kind of, scared already of the whole Ouija board thing. And she makes this weird chat name. It's something 666. Dude, what are you doing, you weirdo? And she lives next door, so she looks out the window. It's weird. It's weird. And then she uses this story that she, or this story that she fabricated, that she made, that she created. She uses it as something to finally get Bobby to get rid of the last thing that he has of his wife, of his ex-wife, Karen. Well, not ex-wife, of his dead wife, Karen. Okay, Janice, was that necessary? That was so crazy. But that shows you her mental state, right? That's what's great about it. It shows you, So, Janice Soprano. Tony sits down with Carmine and Johnny Sack. And they're like, hey man, we want some money from this HUD thing, And Tony's like, no. They want 40%. Tony says no. Tony calls Johnny. He says you can get 5.5. They say no. It's this big thing. Tony uses it as an opportunity to say, look, you guys, Silvio, all you guys, look, what's going on is that they're the ones that got rid of Ralphie. Because obviously, look how they're trying to get money from us. They probably found out that this and that and blah, blah, blah. So he's using it as an opportunity to blame all the Ralphie death and disappearance on the guys in New York. So it's working out for him, I guess. And besides that, Tony believes that Carmine is being unfair. And he reaches out to Carmine's son, little Carmine, out in Miami. So he goes to Miami, and him and Silvio already think that the person leaking out this information of what's going on within them is Polly. That Polly has been talking to Johnny, and they're not wrong. So they're going to start keeping stuff from Polly. Like this Miami trip. So they talk to little Carmine, or Tony talks to little Carmine. Little Carmine's like, I'll go and talk to my dad, don't worry about it. So he goes, he talks to his dad, Carmine, in New York. And nothing really changes. Because little Carmine got jealous that Carmine said that Tony was like a son to him. Because that was weird, right? But because that stung him a little, you could tell. And yeah, so the whole thing is, it's just becoming bigger. It's like a snowball, And this last stream, I love these dream episodes, or these episodes that have the dreams in them. Because, is there like a correct answer? I don't even want to look, because I really want to leave it up to like when I finish the whole show. And then I'll look it up. I mean, what good does that do to me? I don't know, but I like to keep wondering, I guess. And then maybe I can solve it on my own. But this dream with Tony following Ralphie into this house, like in the middle of nowhere, right? He goes into the house and there's a silhouette of a woman at the stairs. And he calls out, he says, I don't know, what's his name? He's looking for, or he's there to try to fill this position, right? And he's like looking at the silhouette and then he wakes up. And I did get that it was supposed to be like Livia. And aside from that, I don't know. Following Ralphie into a home, and the person standing at the stairway is his mother. So what? Like, doing that thing to Ralphie is leading him back to the house of his mother. What the fuck? What does that mean? Yeah, I don't know. We'll keep thinking about it, and then we'll just randomly scream it out in one of these later episodes, I'm sure. Okay, so there was a big emphasis on this juror that they're trying to make sure doesn't allow for the case to show Junior as guilty. Oh my god, I don't know why it took me so long to say it. I was like, oh, let me make sure I'm... I really should have written that one down, but to be honest with you, this episode and this next episode, it's more of like a freestyle. Like I'm looking at Wikipedia and I'm gonna think about it and be like, all right, and the other ones were written down a little bit. So there will probably be a little bit of a difference in quality. I mean, I hope not. But you tell me, and if you believe that there is, I'm very sorry and I apologize, because I do understand that it's kind of sloppy and I'm really trying to get better at that. So just watch me. I will. We're getting there. We're gonna get there soon. There is also still a lot going on between Tony and Carmine. So as we said previously, little Carmine has no luck talking to his father about the whole Tony deal. Carmine does not budge. And Tony decides to retaliate. He sends a couple guys to mess with Carmine's restaurant. They draw like a big old D on a painting, which is just like the strangest thing. But what does that mean? That like Tony's literally going out there and like showing his cock? Like he's like, look at what I can do. Like, take it. Is that what it means? Let's say yes. And yeah, they vandalize this restaurant. So then Carmine is like, let's get the union, man. Let's shut down this construction site, and we'll get on them that way. But everyone is losing money. And Johnny Sack, as we heard from little Carmine, is a greedy bastard, right? So Johnny Sack can't take that financial hit. We see him yell at Ginny because they're running low on money, so he's stressed out. And so he calls Tony and he's talking to Tony and he's like, Tony, hey man, listen, I don't know. And then he walks out of the car and Tony sits in the car and he goes, holy shit, like, did that really just happen? Did he just insinuate to me that we should get rid of Carmine? It's crazy. And what's so lovely about it is that he doesn't straight up say, yeah, let's get rid of him, but we know. It's just, we know, right? Do you know? Because I know. Silvio talks to Polly and he's straight up with him. He's like, look, man, we don't know where the hell you are. Because you're not here. You know? You're not here. So he kind of is like, shoot. Now I have to prove myself, right? So he steals money from this old lady his mom knows, right? And he steals her money and then he suffocates the old lady and he gives that extra money to Tony so they can be on good terms again. Like, that is insane. You know? A little bit funny, to be honest with you, because it's just so absurd, so ridiculous that it's kind of funny. But yeah, so that's how he gets back on good terms with Tony. He had bumped into Carmine. He's like, Carmine, you know, it's me, Polly, whatever. Carmine is like, who? And he realizes that Johnny Sack has been using him. Okay. Fudio. He almost gets rid of Tony because he cannot sit and just watch Tony disrespect the crap out of this woman that he's starting to love or might love already. So if we go back to that trip that he took to Italy that he just came back from, he had talked to his uncle, right? And he said something like, I'm in love with this woman, but she's the woman of the dawn. And the uncle's like, listen, you know, the only way you're going to be able to get with her is if you kill him. So then this whole thing happens where, like, he has this opportunity to get rid of Tony and he almost takes it. And again, he ends up being so ashamed of what he almost did. Doesn't want to spill any blood for Carmela. He, after that night, leaves. Disappears. Is completely gone. He goes back to Italy. Carmela is devastated because they were supposed to have a date, right? A date to go look at some tile. And because Fudio knows that he's walking such a thin line there, man. And Carmela knows too, but at this point she doesn't give a crap. Because she's feeling disrespected. She's not feeling appreciated. She's just done. She's done. We see that. Like, her daughter calls her daughter that she was freaking out about, who was leaving to college, is calling her, and she's just not excited. She's just done. Devastated. She has so much going on, and she's had it, man. And it starts spilling out into the relationships that she has with not just her husband, which wasn't great from the beginning anyway, but also her children. Okay, so Johnny and Tony are going to go forward and get rid of Carmine. And also, let's just go ahead. I don't even know why I said that. So they're going to get rid of Carmine. And while it's going to happen, Carmine is like, okay, fine, you know what? Call Tony, tell him I'll take 15%, finally, whatever. Because of little Carmine, right? And so then Johnny still wants to go forward with the hit. Because Johnny's like, dude, this guy is gone. He knows he's going to be next. And he wants the money. To him, it's always going to be about the money, as we can see already. And Tony, at the end of it, is like, you know what, Chris, just call it. Call it with your two guys. Just give them the money and tell them to forget about it. But of course, he doesn't trust that people like that are just going to forget about something like that. And they can't even afford to risk for anyone to find out about it. So they get rid of the two guys. And they take the money back. And Johnny Sack isn't happy with Tony. We can see it in his face. And it's crazy. Cause what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And like, I am so appalled, and I don't even know what other word to use. Just so upset. I know it's just a show, but it's just because it feels so wrong. I know at the end of the day, it depends on what lens you want to look at it through, but it just looks so wrong, the whole thing that Janice is doing. And there's that moment where, like, they're celebrating in the kitchen, and Junior is sitting down, and he sees them celebrating, and he's like, he says something to Bobby, so they stop. And Janice just kind of stands there. And we can all see that there's sort of something happening where he's like, what the hell? I don't want to see this shit. And he also realizes that it's wrong. Of course, he needed Bobby to move on from the thing, or from the grief of his wife passing away, for business. But it's not okay with him what Janice did, because he knows Janice did something. Because he knows her. Didn't he tell Richie too? He told Richie before, he was like, you better watch out with that niece of mine. You remember? So, appalling. And we get very big arguments between Carmela and Tony, because Irina found out about Tony sleeping with Svetlana, who is her cousin, right? And she is drunk, and she's upset. She had feelings for Tony, according to her. And she spills the beans to Carmela, and Carmela is so mad, because she's like, a woman with one leg? It's just crazy. And then we find out that Tony has been doing this for how long? It's been forever. And finally he says to her, like, dude, you knew what you were signing up for. Like, you knew it, And there's a moment where Meadow is talking to her mom, and she says, everyone is known, basically, right? Or she says, how could you take so much shit from him for so long? Because even though it's her dad, she also is like, what the hell, man? Like, respect yourself, right? How could you allow for him to disrespect you for so fucking long? Because that's her mom, And it hurts her. She's crying. And it's true. And Carmela wants to hurt Tony back, so she tells him about how she had feelings for Furio. And he gets freaking pissed, man. And the whole thing is a mess. And at the same time, they were in the process of buying this vacation home in Whitecaps. And Tony was going to buy the house, but since finances are kind of rocky, he decides not to, and he tells the guy, I'm not going to do it. But the dude had already called the original people that were going to buy it and told them that he had someone that was going to pay cash. So there's a disagreement, and Tony ends up retaliating to this guy by having two of his guys go and blast Dean Martin out of Tony's boat, with the home theater speakers that he had, or sound system that he had. So it's not paradise for this guy anymore. All he had to do was say, okay, fine, Tony, you know. But the dude is also like, well, his fiance, right? It wasn't that like his fiance. She was like, just let it go. Because he was also lying too. He was like fluffing his feathers a little bit too when he was like, oh, I have, what did he say, associates, or I have partners, you know. So it was just like a big cockfight, which was so funny. But yeah, very intense episode. Very intense, kind of painful, because it finally happened. The thing that was just like building up finally happened. And for Tony to even be like, that wasn't even Svetlana's nail, that was, you know, and to have to shut up and be like, damn, like that's not gonna make this any better. If anything, it's gonna make it worse. But yeah, it's crazy. It's if Carmela is driving the car, then what does that mean? I guess we'll see. Okay, so we're done, and we'll come back for season 5, which I've already started, so maybe that'll come a little bit sooner than these last 2 videos have come, or maybe not. I don't know yet. Yeah, so we'll see you next time. Peace.